Hey, this is Steve, and today I'm going to show you how to change four-wheel disc brakes. To change brakes, you will need a tire iron, a 14mm, 15mm, and 18mm socket and wrench combination. You'll need a breaker bar, as well as a ratchet. You'll need a Torx T30 bit, a 9-inch C-clamp, a 2-pound sludge of some sort, a bungee cord, some paper towel, and some ceramic brake lubricant. You will also need the proper jack and jack stand combination for your vehicle. First tip, loosen the bolts when the car is still on the ground. Tip number 2, always open the boxes before you take the parts off. Alright, so I went ahead and checked out my brakes and my rotors. Everything matches, the series, the brand, and I know there's 2 different sizes, one for the front and one for the back, so we're good.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Alright, so I got the wheel off and I have the rotors and the brakes exposed. You can see the rotor is the circle here. This is what spins. And then we've got the caliper, which is connected to the brake lines. And caliper here is what has the brake pads in it. That would be these guys right here. I'm going to now loosen the caliper with the 18mm bolts that are right here and 14mm bolts that are right here. Start by loosening the caliper screw up here. 14 mil. Another one down there. So I had some slipping of this second bolt in here with that. In order to solve that, all you have to do is take an 18mm wrench and attach it to the second bolt, which is right here. I'm trying to get this guy off. Same deal on the bottom. Next you grab your 18mm socket, and we're going to take the big bolts off the caliper. If you leave the first bolt on while you loosen the second, it helps hold the caliper in place, so you don't have to worry about it moving around while you're trying to apply pressure to it. Alright, got the second bolt out. Now the caliper's free. I'm able to slide off the rotor. Alright, so I'm going to pull my caliper off, separate it, send it to my brakes, take this over to work on it, and I'm going to take a bungee cord and hang this caliper so it doesn't pull on the hose. Alright, so I'm about to take this rotor off, and I need a Torx bit to fit right here. This is a T30, so I'll go ahead and put my T30 in there. And the trick here is when you go to turn it, the rotor's free spinning. So how do you get that screw to turn? Here's my trick for the day. Get that screw back on the side where it's accessible. Take a wrench, loop it around one of the bolts, and now you can hold your, I like this one better. Now you can hold your wheel in place while you pull this screw out. There you go. Alright, now that the screw is out, the rotor should be able to come out. But we live in the Midwest, so this thing's rusted. I'm going to get a hammer out and take care of it. Alright, you're going to want to give a few cracks all around this thing to break the rust. So here we go. Be careful not to hit the bolts. Let's see if that worked. Nope. There it is. All right, I got the new rotor out. Take note how clean it is. This is a coated rotor, so it's going to stand up against the elements. I need to line up the Torx screw hole with the Torx screw hole on the hub. And just like we took this apart, put it back together. All right, got that tightened up again. All right, so I got my brake carriage off of the car, and I'm about to pull out the old pads and exchange them. I got my pads right here, and there's a specific inside of the vehicle, outside of the vehicle, and the difference is this clip right here. So just make note on the old ones where they come out of. So I'm gonna line this pad up right there. Also, I wanna make note, be careful when you pull these pins out to re-grease them, because as I noticed from the first go around, these pins are different. So the way this goes, you gotta make sure you get them back in the right way. This one's got that plastic piece on it, and this one's all steel. All right, now I've cleaned up the pins, and what I'm gonna do is swap out the pads. Let's bring it in, push it to the inside, very carefully. You will cut your hands, these clips are very sharp. Next, you wanna remove the clips that allow the pads to slide. Grab your new clips, pop them on just like the old ones. All right, and now we're gonna do brake pads. Once again, you identify the one with the clip. You can see these pads, they just pop in and they're held together by pressure. Once all the parts and components are back together, these pads won't have anywhere to go. See these rails? That part of the pad, click in there. You're gonna have to pull this clip down to allow room to slide in. Get it just right, it'll work. All right, now that the pads are in, we're gonna go ahead and grease our pins and put those back in. Just make sure you cover liberally with some brake grease. Slide it in, spin it around, make sure you get a full covering. Press your pin in. It doesn't go all the way in, but it will once you tighten it up. Same thing on the other one. All right, this is ready to go back on the car. Okay, so I've got my rotor installed. I've got my pads changed out. My bolts here are lubed up, ready to go. And now I'm ready to assemble this back together. Since the pads are thicker than the old ones we took off, the brakes, the calipers, are gonna be squeezed a little harder than they need to be. So we have to squeeze this piston back down to allow for the brakes to fit over the rotors. This is how I do it. I take a large C-clamp, and I just turn it until this piston presses down. So you can watch right here. Try to get a better view. So you can see right there, this piston's gonna collapse. Now we take our brake pads and we place them back on the rotor where they go. You can grab an 18mm bolt, put this in place. So now the brakes are held on. All right, there we go. I've got the top bolt on, so this is still loose, but it's held in place. And now what I'm gonna do is slide the caliper over the top. This just slides over the brakes. And you wanna make sure to depress your bolts in the back so that gives some clearance. Once you get it around there, take one of those bolts, put it in place so it's held together. All right, now you can put the bolts in the rest of them and tighten everything down. And there it is. You can see the new pads with the new rotors. Okay, so I moved on to the back wheel, and the back wheel is pretty much the same as the front, except for the bolts and the caliper are different sizes and locations. My caliper came off of these two bolts here, and the back is different because there's a drum brake, and this is the emergency brake. It goes all the way around and expands. All right, well, that's how I changed out these brakes. I went ahead and finished the back one, and now I'm about to put the tire back on and let it back down. Thanks for watching, and subscribe below.